Welcome ladies and gents, Chris Andre here. You can find me at BetBoxing on Twitter for boxing related tweets, or you can subscribe to the channel, click that notifications button and get a new notification whenever a new video is uploaded. Loads to talk about today. I guess you could say it's another roundup. I did say I'd be doing them weekly, but listen, when a whole bunch of stuff comes up, obviously you want to talk about it, right? So let's do that. Let's talk about it. We'll start off with Alexander-Usyk and Anthony Joshua. Obviously this is a huge fight. The way I see it, it's a semi-final. Just like I see Fury and Wilder, a semi-final prior to the final, which is the undisputed title. That's what we're all hoping, at least, right? A lot of interesting stuff here, a lot of interesting comments being said by different people. So Tony Bellew feels that Usyk is the best ever in the division, he said, of cruiserweight. We'll leave that for another video, that discussion, but clearly he rates Usyk very, very highly, and yet when he's going to be up against Anthony Joshua, he just feels like he's too small. But this is interesting because there seems to be a general narrative that Anthony Joshua is going to need a knockout. So let's look into this for a moment and think about, is this an inevitable thing? Because what he says is, initially he said, I know exactly how good Usyk is. He's an amazing talent, best fighter I ever fought, but I don't believe he's big enough and dangerous enough to cause AJ problems. He then pauses and says, well, he's big enough to cause him problems. I don't think he'd last long enough to defeat him, but he will cause problems while he's standing, and AJ is going to have to get rid of him. He'll put the pressure on, make him pay for every single thing he earns in there. AJ is the best athletic heavyweight I've seen in the last 2 decades. As an athlete, mate, he's unbelievable. He's an unbelievable specimen. He really is. The power he can move at, the speed he can move at, the dexterity is unbelievable. He's on another level to everybody else. He's just got to keep improving on that boxing IQ, which he is. He showed that against Andy Ruiz Jr. in the rematch. How unbelievable he was. In the Pulev fight, he went back a little bit and showed the old things that he was doing, and the way he broke down the big men with the speed, that's what counts. So, clearly he sees Usyk as a threat in terms of a boxing ability, but he doesn't believe Usyk will last. He then goes on to say, but then he's going to have to show something different against Usyk again, and he's going to have to box at times, put pressure on, and he'll have to get hit as well. So he's not questioning whether Usyk's going to be able to find the target. What he's relying on, the idea of AJ winning, is that AJ will be able to punish him far too much and make him pay for everything he has to earn in there, and that will wear Usyk down. Peter Obo, the former British and Commonwealth heavyweight champion, he was also fought at cruiserweight. He fought Johnny Nelson, in fact. This was back in the day, of course. He gave an interview to the Nigerian newspaper Vanguard, and he said, it's going to be a walk in a park for Joshua. I cannot see Usyk crossing the 9th round. If Alexander Usyk happens to win, Joshua should retire from boxing. So again, Obo feels that a stoppage is coming, but he feels that it's going to be so straightforward that if AJ was to slip up, it would be a terrible, terrible defeat from his perspective. Well, Michael Hunter, who of course is a very, very good heavyweight, has proven his level at heavyweight already, you could argue, and believe me, Hunter is going to be a major threat to any of the big guys, because of his ability to close the distance quickly, that raiding style, particularly early in a fight. He jumps in before heavyweights can adjust, and he can inflict some serious damage. Go and look at the Pacoli fight, go and look at the Povetkin fight. This guy's dangerous, trust me when I tell you that, he's dangerous. And although the Hrgovic fight didn't happen, and as a fan, like I've said before, it irritates me, if I was to put on an analyst's hat, I get why he did that. I believe Hrgovic is all wrong for him, but there are other top fighters out there where he would have a lot of success against. So for me, if it's a swerve, it's a clever swerve, it's a smart swerve. It's not what I want to see as a fan, but as an analyst, so to speak, I get why he's done that. But he's the real deal, Hunter. I genuinely believe that. He believes that for Usyk to lose, he has to be knocked out. That Anthony Joshua has to knock him out. I don't think Anthony Joshua beats Usyk unless he knocks him out. This is heavyweight boxing, so there's always going to be knockouts. Usyk's strong enough, and he's an Olympian and all that. He has the accolades and the attributes to do so. I just think Usyk is a little bit too fine-tuned for him. People are always going back on the Chisora fight because he didn't look so good. But I think that was way more of a styles make fights type of thing. It's in his favour to box somebody like Anthony Joshua, in my opinion. You have to hit Usyk with something very sneaky when you're that tall and that dynamic. We know Anthony Joshua's sneaky move is the uppercut, But that's going to be a very rare punch to hit Usyk with. We know that Usyk is very defensive minded and he's not there to engage. He's there to get the points and win. So it's going to be a very difficult feat and challenge for Anthony Joshua. It's not going to be as easy as moving with Pulev and Ruiz in that second fight. He's not going to have that advantage. So I think Joshua should go for broke or something. They're fighting. So there's definitely a chance if they get in that ring. So we'll see. Now, isn't this interesting? Bellew initially said, oh, no, he's not going to cause him problems. Immediately corrected himself and said, actually, he will cause him problems, but I don't think he'll last. Peter Obo clearly is someone who thinks something very different. It's important to note Peter Obo is of Nigerian origin. And although he was very damning in the sense that if, AJ doesn't win, he should retire. Clearly, you could argue there's a bias there. He's going to be supporting AJ, just like Bellew knows Anthony Joshua, and there will be a bias there too, which is natural. I don't hold that against these guys, but it's always something you have to consider when you're listening to people's predictions. Hunter, on the other hand, seems to say something which Bellew seems to imply, by the way. He'll give him problems, but I don't think he'll last. He didn't say Anthony Joshua's going to outbox him. Anthony Joshua's going to make him pay for everything he has to earn. And then he'll break him down and get him out of there late on. I don't think Usyk's going to last. That's what Bellew said. Hunter's saying for him to win, he can't possibly last. So, Peter Obo aside, it seems like both Bellew and Hunter believe that Usyk has to be stopped. Now, will it be easy to stop Alexander Usyk? A lot of people are saying, yeah, look at the size difference. Usyk's a cruiserweight. He's never been in there before with a proper heavyweight of this level, this caliber. He didn't look great against Derek Chisora. I thought he won about 9 rounds against Chisora, but in the first 2 rounds, he did struggle. Now, talking of him struggling, Chisora did seem to go for broke early on, and that's why he gassed. So Chisora, who's very, very good at coming at you quickly early on and applying incessant pressure, who can land with club and power. Just go watch the Takam fight. Go watch the Spilka fight. He can bang. Chisora can bang. Go watch early in the fight against Joseph Parker, who's known for having a terrific chin. He was down early. Go watch how many times Dillian Whyte was seriously hurt. That never happened to Usyk. Usyk performed better against Chisora than all of those guys. So this idea that he's not going to last, is there any basis to it? Now, I'm not saying Anthony Joshua can't knock out Alexander Usyk. But if you're going to tell me that he can knock him out, then you have to basically tell me how he's going to do it. This idea that I'm just going to walk over there and walk through him, what are you basing that on? Let's consider some of the fighters he's fought. He beat Murat Gassiev, and Gassiev is a monster puncher and would be a monster puncher in the heavyweight division. This dude went to the body like he really targeted the body early on. Did you see Usyk decline during that fight? Did you see him gas? Hunter, who, like we said, very dangerous early in fights, he won the first 3 rounds against Usyk. Usyk had to adapt. As with Tony Bellew, he lost the first few rounds. Now, that's one area that you could focus on and say, listen, if he's losing 3 rounds to AJ might be able to inflict enough damage in those 3 rounds to seriously affect him. Maybe. But Bellew, known as the bomber, he's a puncher, big left hook. Murat Gassiev, huge puncher. Maris Briedis he's been in there with. Very heavy-handed guy. Go look at what he did to Manuel Charlo when he went up to heavyweight just to test the waters. Marco Huck, of course, is not, wasn't the fighter he used to be when they fought, but he still was an aggressive guy who brought a lot of pressure. None of these guys hurt Usyk. Chisora made him uncomfortable, but did you see his legs wobble at any point? Have you ever seen Usyk even close to being seriously hurt, to being stopped? Now, that's not to say that Anthony Joshua can't do it. But if you're ultimately saying AJ's too big and he's going to walk through him, you're speculating. There's nothing you've seen, in my opinion, that confirms that. You're speculating, I think this will happen because of, and then whatever your reasons might be. Now, I'm just telling you this to let you know that this is a very serious threat to Anthony Joshua, and I find these comments interesting from these guys. If you read between the lines of what Bellew's saying and you listen to Hunter, then, these are guys that have been in the ring with both. Well, they've been in the ring with Usyk, and they've been in the ring with other heavyweights that are big punchers. They know what they're talking about in the sense of Usyk's level and his durability. Peter Obo hasn't, and that's why Peter Obo's maybe saying this should be a walk in the park for AJ. But is that really the case? Moving on from Anthony Joshua and Alexander Usyk, I can't wait for that fight. By the way, it's going to be such a good fight. Now, another little piece of interesting news. I'm not going to focus too much on this, but as you guys know, Jamal Charlo is fighting Juan Macias Montiel this weekend. look, Montiel's 22 wins, 4 defeats, right? 2 no contests, or actually, sorry, 2 draws they were, split decision draws. But the 22 wins he has are 22 knockouts. So you know this guy's going to bring it. And whenever you've got a guy that can obviously do something like that, 22 wins, 22 knockouts, he's always going to be exciting to watch, right? And he has got some big wins. You know, James Kirkland's passed his best. That is a knockout win that he has, though. He drew with Hugo Centeno Jr. He did lose to Jaime Munguia and Johnny Navarrete. He has stopped Ivan Montero, who was 19-0 at the time. So he's been in there with some decent guys. But you would expect a guy of Charlo's ability to be able to weather the storm and come through this. You know, Derevanchenko obviously can bring the storm too. And you saw how well he did against him. So I do expect Charlo to come through that fight. But one interesting little thing. And Andreas Katzourakis, who we did a Prospect Watch video on, has been the sparring partner, or one of the sparring partners, for Jermall Charlo in preparation for this defense against Montiel. Now, I will put the Prospect Watch video in the description box of this video so you guys can check him out. If you're aware of him and you have a different opinion to what I do about him, let me know in the comment section below. But he's definitely somebody who seems like an exciting prospect. 24-0 he was in the amateur system in boxing with 18 knockouts. He didn't go exactly to the highest level in the amateur game, but that's because he wanted to turn over quickly. The fact of the matter is he won every fight, so he was clearly above the level he was competing at. And to win by knockout in short fights like that is impressive. And he comes from a background in kickboxing, and he was a very talented kickboxer. So this is a guy that you know, it's worth keeping an eye on. He's only 23 years old. He's taken his career seriously enough to relocate from Greece, from Europe, to move to the United States. And he was working initially with his hero trainer, Abel Sanchez. And because he was struggling to find fights and stuff like that with everything going on with the pandemic, he's decided to try and further grow his craft and stuff like that. And he's now working with Ronnie Shields. How do you interpret that? If he was working with Abel, even if he wasn't getting fights, do you think that Abel felt like he couldn't take him any further? Do you think that he felt like he learned as much as he could from Abel Sanchez and it was time to move on? Or maybe Abel Sanchez wasn't able to dedicate as much time as he possibly could? Was it a case of Abel Sanchez needing him to move somewhere that he wasn't able to move to? What was it? What do you think would lead him to move from one top trainer to another in Ronnie Shields to want to work on new? Is it to work on new things? Well, this is what he said about it. When I came to running, I knew he had Jermall, so I knew it was a possibility to work with him. So clearly he's seeing it perhaps as an opportunity to further his craft by working against one of the world's best in the division. And he said, Shields told me in the second week if I wanted to work with Jermall and spar with him in his training camp. And it was a great opportunity for me to learn from him, gain experience, and be around a world champion and check out how he works. So it was awesome. And, you know, you hear a lot of stories of guys like Deontay Wilder, Tyson Fury. They did when they were coming up, going from camp to camp and working with the current champions at the time. And he says, it's not that I'm similar to Montiel because he throws very wide, which I don't really do, but I bring power and physical strength to the table and that kind of stuff. Of course, I would work uppercuts and hooks and stuff that Montiel would do. Now, although he's trying to emulate Montiel rather than go and put it on Charlo by the sounds of it, that enables him to develop new things. In order for him to be effective in emulating Montiel, he has to develop that uppercut, right? So it's interesting to see him trying to add new variations to his game. That can only help him, in my humble opinion. He said, I felt good and I came to try and push him as much as I could and bring the best out of him. But of course, he is who he is and he was doing his thing. He's very sharp, very explosive and has great distance. He's going to do great in the fight. So clearly, by the sounds of it, it looks like Charlo, maybe you could say, was having his way with him, or at least, you know, getting the better of it, showing, you know, he is who he is. There's a reason that Katzourakis said that. But he's talking about a 23-year-old who's looking to extend his craft. I'm going to put the video, like I said, in the description box of this video. It's just for those of you that did follow that initial video and perhaps you're wondering what he's up to these days. That was just a little bit of an update. And moving on to the last topic that we'll talk about in this video. Now, Joe Joyce has said he wants to punch up Anthony Joshua. Now, obviously, that doesn't really strike me as a typical Joe Joyce-esque type comment to make, but, you know, I'm glad that he's trash talking. I want to see it a little bit more. He's such a nice dude, isn't he, that you just don't expect it from him, but they're blatantly telling him, Joe, you need to speak a bit more, man. And he started to do it, to be fair to him. And listen, you cannot undermine Joe Joyce. If Joe Joyce is saying he's going to punch up anyone in the face, you got to take this guy seriously. He's a real deal. Joe Joyce is an elite level heavyweight. Now, there are some serious limitations there. His hands are slow. His hands are slow with everything apart from the jab. His hooking is very slow. You know, his jab, though, is developed. It's good. It's consistent. It's very thudding. But he's got real power, real strength. He's very agile. You see that with the flips he does in the ring. And although you can't do a front flip in the middle of boxing, what you can do is use your feet to move around the ring and lean away from shots. And when it's pre-planned that he's going to do that, he's very good at it. So if he thinks, right, I'm going to get in, land a shot and get back out, he'll land and then lean away with that agility, and he's brilliant at it. When he has to react to a shot though, so when it's not pre-planned and he has to react, he doesn't always see the shots coming, particularly straight shots, and you do see him get hit with quite a lot. His reaction times aren't great, but he's got an iron chin, so he gets away with it. As a result of that, I believe the guy that would be all wrong for him out of all the top dogs would be Deontay Wilder, because he is going to eat too many flush right hands, in my humble opinion, before he'd have the opportunity to wear down Wilder enough to the point where he wins the fight. If he was to somehow be able to carry that iron chin through those punches, then you'd fancy him to beat Wilder, right? But I'm just not so sure that would be the case. The point I'm making here is that as good as Joe Joyce is and the opponents are, you can't just sit there and say, yeah, he's good, but he's limited and he loses to the top guys. I can envisage a way in which he beats all the other top guys. I can envisage a way in which he beats Usyk, AJ, Fury. I'm not saying he would necessarily. I personally would probably pick all of them over him. But that doesn't mean I would do that confidently. I would give him, anywhere between a 30 and 40% chance against all three of those guys. This is a real deal. He's a real deal. He's a top level heavyweight. But one of the things they're linking him with is a potential fight against Tony Yoka. Now, Yoka, of course, beat him in the Olympic final in Rio, and that was controversial. Many people felt that Joyce won that fight. And they've asked him if he's ready for that, and he said, look, I'm past that, to be honest. It would be appealing at the right level because I'm pushing on for a world title. So if that makes sense, or if it's for a world title, I would do it. To drop a quick little pause there, I'm not sure if you guys could hear the car alarm going off, and some swearing in the background. Sorry if you could hear that, but that's London living. If you start hearing some shooting or something in the background, I'll have to pause again. But anyway, Joe Joyce has basically said he's that Yoka is a guy that he'd be willing to fight as long as there's something on the line. And I've seen one or two people talk about, oh, Joyce wants to duck Yoka. Listen, a duck is when you are in line to fight an opponent and you should fight him for whatever reason, whether it's for financial gain or whether it's for a title shot or something like that, and you don't take the fight. That's a duck. When you're ahead of someone in the rankings and you've achieved more than they've achieved in the pro game, and it makes no real sense, then it's a question of risk versus reward. That's not a duck. You can't accuse Joe Joyce of ducking. Bear in mind, Joe Joyce was the underdog against Dubois. Joe Joyce has been in there with the likes of Jennings. He's been put on a fast track because he knows he hasn't got the time and he wants a world title shot. He was willing to fight Alexander-Usyk. This isn't a guy who's looking for gimme fights, who's looking to manufacture his way against C-rate fighters in the hope of then getting a title shot. But at the same time, he's not stupid. He's not going to go in there and take a massive risk when it doesn't make sense. So Yoka does have to take a few more fights, build his profile, and then of course if that was to happen in the future, it would be totally worth it. But I'm not having any of this Joe Joyce is ducking Yoka talk. If you disagree with me on that, please let me know why and explain why. Finally, Jaime Munguia is set to fight Szeremeta, the man that fought Gennady Golovkin in his last fight, and Golovkin looked brilliant against Szeremeta. But I guess this will tell us more about where Golovkin is. If he goes and gives Munguia a real fight and it's a bit of a war, then you can say, listen, Golovkin is still a very high level, even though he's not the Golovkin he used to be. If Munguia goes and smashes him up, then people are going to start asking questions about Golovkin. But it would then set up that Munguia-Golovkin fight, which people have been speaking about for a while, very, very nicely. So either way, if you're a Golovkin fan, you'll want to keep an eye on this particular fight. Yeah, excited about that one coming up this weekend. Let me know what you think of all the things we've chatted about, guys. Take care. Chat to you soon. God bless. Please hit that like, subscribe and notifications button and share the videos. Help the channel grow. Take care. God bless.